Family, the channel is The Layman. Thank you for deciding to take a look at this. We're looking at Melanie Philips, who's been making her rounds, in on the YouTubes. She's doing a lot of interviews right now, and there's one of these interviews, and it's specifically the clip we're going to look at right now, when truth becomes a right-wing concept. Let's see what she has to say about this one.
Truth has become a right-wing concept. You cannot say it, because if you say it, you are considered right-wing.
What is she saying that you can't say? That the things you're not allowed to say? Because I know that the left has been kind of they're a little fuzzy on the meaning of certain terms like man and woman. Those things kind of become fuzzy. And then other terms like racist or Nazi, they just kind of get thrown around willy-nilly to where those words mean less and less as you use them to describe people that you don't like. Maybe that's what she's referring to, but let's let her cook.
And to be right-wing is to be in league with the forces of evil. It is a Manichaean division between ideologies of one kind or another and those who don't subscribe to those ideologies.
Alexander Solzhenitsyn had an entire philosophy against ideologies. Solzhenitsyn was a World War I fighter who actually got sent to a bunch of Russian gulags under Joseph Stalin. And he had this whole philosophy about how ideologies, they do make you more intelligent, but they also make you more susceptible to complicated self-deceptions, right? And Melanie Philips she's cooking right now as it pertains to ideologies, and she thinks that the left has been captured by its own ideologies here.
And those who don't subscribe to those ideologies. And the ideologies brook no dissent because they represent, in the minds of people who promote them, they represent goodness, brotherhood of man, progress, reason, education. And anyone who opposes them is against all good things. So they are not just wrong, they're not people to be argued with. They're people to be removed and silenced, because otherwise you're against all good things. So it's that division between good and evil.
Listen, I may not agree with everything that Melanie Philips throws in the crock pot, but I do believe she is cooking. She's cooking with gas. Because look, I've been in these conversations, and I'm someone who's genuinely confused when someone tells me that a man can become a woman, and then they're, first of all, offended that I even have the question. You remember that George Orwell said that freedom is the ability to say 2 + 2 = 4, right? When you feel intimidated to express a truth which is right in front of your eyes, right? That intimidation is kind of like, whoa, it's like, why is it such a sketchy thing to say something that I find obvious? And why are you so hesitant to respond in a discussion in a back and forth type way? Why am I immediately, some kind of phobic, right? I see what she's saying here.
And unfortunately, if you stand up against an ideology like, so-called anti-racism, which basically says all white people are bad.
Critical theory.
Or you stand up and say a woman is defined by her biology. So you're against transgender. So, as you know...
Listen, I know a lot of people who say that black people can't be racist. I think Mark Lamont Hill, once upon a time, he defined racism as something like, correct me, if I'm wrong about this, if anybody follows Mark Lamont Hill. But I think he said something like racism is the systematic investment in one race to the detriment of another, that it has to do with capital, it has to do with who has the money. So if you're disenfranchised, you are like beyond race, or you can't be racist, right? And there's a lot of new theories on racism popping up that the ancestors of people who look like me wouldn't even understand. They're like, what, it's racist to talk in this way, or to accurately talk about statistics. This becomes a problem, right?
There's no discussion. You are cancelled. You are removed. You have to be silenced. This dissent cannot be permitted. So we're in what a thinker of a previous age called cultural totalitarianism. No alternative is to be permitted. Now, first of all, that is an assault on individual freedom, freedom of expression and freedom.
Now, I wonder if she, I don't know how old this interview is. I think this is relatively novel. I wonder what she would say about the right wing's radical response to this, and that, Donald Trump is the current president of the United States, most powerful man in the world, and we're heading to what seems like is going to be a single party system with a right wing supermajority for the rest of time. Especially if the Democrats don't get out of the trash can in terms of their approval rating. I wonder what you would say to that.
An assault on individual freedom, freedom of expression and freedom, but it's also a complete repudiation of reason. Because if you say there is nothing that you can say that can dissent from my ideology, and you say you're bringing evidence to oppose me, well, that cannot be the case. If you're denying evidence and reality and thinking and engagement with an idea, then you're denying reason itself. And so the irony is that in an age of supposed reason, we're so rational that we've dispensed with religion. Only idiots have any kind of religious sense because it's not based on reason. That's the thinking. So we're so rational we've got rid of religion, and yet we are repudiating rationality completely.
Yeah. I think she's cooking.
This is something that doesn't quite add up. So I would say that we are in a new age of unreason. That's what we're in. An age of unreason. That's what we've unleashed.
It seems that we've forgotten, my friends, that reason is and ought to be a slave of the passions. Shout out to David Hume, who said that, and Friedrich Nietzsche, who embodied the spirit of that kind of idea, right? That reason isn't a leader. It's a tool that all of us use to accomplish our ends. I wanted to marry my wife, and so I thought up reasons. I thought up a bunch of manipulation strategies to make her my wife and to have a baby with her. Mission accomplished. But yeah, I think that, what she's saying, makes a lot of sense. And I never thought, the thing is, look, I have no reason not to be honest here. Think about it and correspond with me in the comments if I'm off, right? But realize that if I'm off, I'm at least being honest, right, in this moment about how I feel. I never thought that, some of these strange arguments like women should be demoted to chest feeder or cisgender, right? I never understood the meaning of that, and I wondered if it ever had a leg to stand on in the beginning. It's very rare to see someone, and I think now they're becoming a bit more prominent, but people don't really argue these things as much as they do accuse the other side of being, transphobic for having the argument in general, or even for having an opinion about these things. And that, I think, is it's a little weird to be labeled a member of a hate group for a genuine misunderstanding, especially if you're coming with the spirit of a cooperative principle in mind.
And it's an irony because we've done it under the aegis of being rational.
Right.
But in getting rid of religion, we have unleashed an age of unreason. And what follows from that is the erosion of freedom to think, freedom to speak, freedom to act, and a complete confusion about where the limit should be drawn between what I want and what others need. My duty to others and my wish to realize my own potential. In other words, it's I versus we, and all those things. And the confusion is epic. But that's where we are. But again, we have no cultural leaders, religious, political, whatever, standing up saying this.
Well, I think we have, what's crazy is that the ones who I see standing up to this the most are women. And that might be because what is coming is going to maybe affect the women. Whenever totalitarian regimes, begin to take hold, the first to really be negatively impacted happen to be women and children. because men are just less agreeable in general, just as dint of our biology. We are far more likely and capable of resisting. And so, the women who I see speaking up are those like Melanie Philips and Helen Joyce over at Sex Matters, who led the women, in the UK to win rights for biological women up in the Supreme Court. So I think it's going to be women, for the most part, leading the charge against the insanity which now besets us.
And I'm sure, I may be naive, but I'm pretty sure that what I'm saying may not be thought about in these terms by many people, but I'm pretty sure that if leaders got up and said this, it would start striking chords, because people need to live in a society which is civilized, which looks after the welfare of others rather than yourself. We all know this, but we've kind of allowed ourselves collectively to ignore it and push it to one side. It requires leadership. We don't have it. That's the problem.
Wow. Shout out to John Anderson. Definitely look up his channel and subscribe to that. But look, I think she was cooking with gas. Please correspond with me in the comments and let me know if you think that she was accurate, or where either her or I are misguided in where we think things are headed.